There we go. Hello everyone, to those just joining, to everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether you're watching here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Hello, welcome back to another stream. Welcome to another game dev stream, and if you're completely new here, which is entirely possible, welcome to a break stream where I do this kind of every so often when I'm doing a long form playthrough where I will just do two streams of other things in between, like free playthrough streams, just to break things up. And hello, Spider Ninja Gaming, welcome to chat, welcome, good to have you here. But yeah, if you're new here, then of course, every so often when I'm doing a long form playthrough like I'm currently doing with Kingdom Hearts 2, I will just do two break streams just to sort of segment things up, so I'm not, you know, constantly throwing Kingdom Hearts 2 or just any long form playthrough in general at people. And it's a nice way to sort of, you know, pace things, you know, do things that I like to do on the odd occasion, or try something new. It's more of a, I guess, an experimental thing, but that's basically the whole logical motivation behind that. But it's been a while since I last did a game dev stream. The last time I did one of these was back in May during the Bullet Hell Jam, which, honestly, that jam went very well. That game jam went very well for me, I think, and I had a lot of fun with it. There was a lot that I learned, a lot that I did, and there are lessons that I took away from that. But since then, what have I been doing? Well, what I've been doing in like terms of like game dev stuff in general, I haven't really been working on this project because I've been focused on learning. Mostly, I've been focused on doing online courses and looking at tutorials and other stuff to kind of reinforce some things that I didn't really know about Unreal and just some bits about game dev in general that I've either forgotten or I wasn't properly taught at university, because sometimes I feel like my tutors just kind of didn't know what they were talking about. But that's all in the past, though it kind of hurts. But yeah, no. As for me, I've only been using Unreal for... Hold on, let me think. Yeah, no, like, there was a little bit of time during, like, my time at university where we had to use Unreal for one or two of our assignments, for one of our modules and whatnot, but because at the time I was more comfortable with Unity, I just stuck with that because I felt, yeah, I can understand this a whole lot better. This is my jam, this is my thing that I like to use because, well, it works better for me. And then there was the stuff with Unity that came out last year and all the licensed stuff. And I know it's like, oh, they got... It's so unreal to see that much progress. It is, Zazel. It is. And, yeah, it's been a while. It's good to have you here again. And, of course, yeah, I understand, like, if you haven't been able to, because life's, you know, life is busy. Everything is busy. The world is busy. But, yeah, but because of, like, all the whole stuff with Unity that happened last year with all the licensing stuff, and that pushed people away to both Godot and Unreal, though because I was more, like, at the very least a little bit familiar with Unreal at the time, I just decided, you know what, I'm going all in on learning Unreal, and that's what I've been doing since then. There are things I know quite well now, but there are still things that I kind of trip myself up on. And also I may as well just pop on, like, background music while I'm kind of just here, not doing too much with things at the moment. We're going fighting game music again, because I do like this. Well, my game now I hadn't had... Ooh! I mean, I'm kind of curious about what you're working on, because... What I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to do like a collectathon style platformer, much in the same vein as like PS1 platformers like Spyro and whatnot. But, of course, I've been sort of going around with like courses and tutorials and whatnot, trying to sort of pick up some things and sort of bring it back here. I got Total War Warhammer 3 and that has consumed me completely. It's always the one game. That was the whole of the last month or so. It's been... I'm really feeling Destiny it! 2 and doing everything, like all the power grind, all the loot farming and everything. Only recently have I actually kind of started to try and do things in other games like Fortnite or Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, or I got Balatro. Like, I have Balatro now. I also played Bloons Tower Defense 6 for the first time yesterday, and that was interesting. I also got Shadows of Doubt, which is a game that I've been kind of keeping my eye on for a little while, because, like, it's like a sort of murder mystery-esque game, but it's, like, it's procedurally generated, you know, basically like roguelike kind of stuff, but for like a murder mystery where each person has their own, like, motivations, their own routine and stuff, and then one of them will be just given the urge to kill someone, and then you have to sort of work things out. And I haven't played it yet, but I'm looking forward to actually getting into it, because not just for the sake of, like, looking at it as a way of studying game design, but also just in general, because, like, roguelikes, procedural gen stuff in games, as long as it's not AI, but that kind of stuff I do like a lot, and I like when it's done in a way that makes games very novel and unique and provides different sort of emergent gameplay. But yeah, aside from that, tangent over. I haven't revisited this project for a while. I've done one or two little tweaks here or there with like the post-process effects. Like, I've done something like, instead of the whole sort of pixely thing, I now have a thing for models which gives like a vertex wobble, like in the old PS1 games. And I kind of did that with the environment as well, though I feel like, from what I can remember, from when I was testing it before, it's taking a while to play, of course, but there's some hiccups graphically, from what I remember. Also, I hope that I haven't just pressed play and it's crashing, because that would suck. Like, we just started and we're having problems already. Oh yeah, no, there we go. Like, it's kind of there for some of the... Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, some of the flickering on some of the environment when I've been... Also, I still have the AI enemy here. I'm just going to get away from them so they stop chasing me. There's things that I want to adjust in terms of physics, because in terms of like speed, in terms of how the player jumps off the walls, because at the moment, if you can remember how this works before, like if you just do a wall jump, it would just directly sort of jump you away from the wall. And I recently played Super Mario Sunshine on stream, like the whole playthrough, even though that was only a few streams. I did the whole thing, and that was fun. But I realized that wall jumps in Mario games are very heavily sort of like, oh, the angle you jump off, like jump onto a wall at, you jump off the wall at the same angle, but, you know, the opposite way. So I want to be able to try and do that, and I'm not certain on how I would do that yet, but I can work things out. Also, there are settings I have found for, like, source code compiling and whatnot, and, like, for Rider, which I have picked up recently from one of the online courses I've been doing. And if you've been here before, then you'll remember this, but if you haven't, I'll explain. The last, like, when I've streamed game dev in the past, it's always been a case of I make a class, and then I can, like, and then it just forcibly compiles it, and I'm waiting like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so just to actually get to doing anything. And that's frustrating. But now, I've made sort of changes to, like, the editor preferences. Now it doesn't force it to just compile absolutely everything that's made until I say that I want it to compile. So I'll actually be able to sort of go from, like, point A to point B in terms of, like, when I actually, you know, start working on writing the code. Also, as well as this, I'm kind of going to be doing a little bit of future-proofing in a way, because there's something that I've picked up from doing, like, on the online course I'm currently following, that architecturally speaking is very helpful. And I have Clip Studio open just in case, like, I have the urge to just sort of, like, break things down, because, like, I have a good grasp of it, but it's also the means of explaining it to people who most likely definitely do not know what the hell I'm talking about in some cases. So I'm going to... You know what, actually, I'm going to do that quickly. So, yep, Clip Studio's open, yeah, there we go. But I'm going to do that quickly, because I feel like it would be a good idea to do this now rather than later, so I'm not, like, in the, like, getting lost in the development source and then taking a break and I lose my flow. My flow. Right. So, normally, like, how I've done it in the past, like, developing, like, trying to make, like, little projects, is that, of course, I'll just say that this represents the player, and then we have, like, the UI. So, we just sort of, like, health, score, like, just as an example, like, just, like, a sample UI. How I used to do it in the past is that I would just get the data directly from the player, like such as their health, how many points they have, and so on, and I would just display it like that. And while that kind of works in a way, it's kind of bad in the sense of it's too dependent on having that player there. It's too dependent on having that object exist, and if it doesn't exist, like if this doesn't exist, then neither this nor like getting things and passing it to there works. Like, it's too heavily dependent on the thing. So, a way to make it more abstract, you know, in a way that sort of... So you're not forcing it to be like, oh, this needs this, definitely, and so on and so forth, is to use something called the model view controller architecture. And model view controller, which is abbreviated as MVC, which, if Dragon were here, she'd get a kick out of this, because, Marvel vs. Capcom. But, yeah, but this is abbreviated as MVC. And what this basically means is that there's three parts of this. There's the model, which is, I'll just draw this as like a little square. This is the data itself. So what data we want, say, the player's health, how many of a collectible they have, how many lives they have, or so on. We have the view, which, again, to simplify it, is like the UI, so the health bar on the screen, the score count, and whatnot. What other information you would have on the screen, that would essentially be as part of your view. So, in Unreal's case, that would be widgets. Oh, I missed the D for widgets. So, and sitting in between, I know it's like spelt like this way, and I feel like that rolls off the tongue better, but it's weird because like model is over here, view is over here, like not in the middle, and then controller is the one in the middle. So you have the controller, which sits like in the middle. And the controller basically acts as a middleman between the UI and the data. And so basically, data is passed on to the controller, and then the controller just sort of feeds that data to the view instead, rather than like having it be directly linked to an object that it's getting data from. It's connected to a thing that, like, it separates the actual object from, like, the UI just by one layer, and from my understanding, it's better to have this managed that way, because, like, in the event that, like, a UI has a controller, but that controller doesn't have an object that it's assigned to, then it's not necessarily breaking. It's just kind of, you know, like, it just exists. There's no, like, sort of, oh, this object reference doesn't exist? We're setting fire to your entire project. Goodbye. But that's basically my understanding of it, or trying to at least break it down like this. Let me know if that was a bit too, like, out of the way, or if that was still, like, decipherable. Though I do my best. But anyway, part of what I'm going to be doing this stream is I'm going to be bringing in things that are needed for, like, implementing this architecture for this project, which is similar to how it was done in the course that I've been following. So I will likely be looking at some code from another project just to refresh my memory on things, because like, I know the absolute, like, baseline for it, but it's, you know, remembering all of the specifics that I am struggling with at the moment. But the more I do this, definitely the better I'll get with it. So I know you won't be able to see, like, the add C++ class window, which is still kind of a little bit of a frustrating thing, but what this needs, this hinges on two things. So the controllers themselves, the controllers for the MVC model, they are not actual, like, objects in the scene. They are just, like, little data objects, and they can just be simply the object class, and that's about it. So I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call that... Though I'm also actually going to use what I've been learning, which is segmenting some of the... or actually using the public and private class type things, but mostly the public one. And I am actually going to be like using proper file organizing, because in the past I've just kind of had it like be there existing in the editor. Like as you can see in the editor, everything is just kind of thrown into one folder, and that kind of bugs me. It actually kind of bugs me a lot. So if possible, probably not during stream, but probably afterwards, I will probably reorganize some things as well, just so it looks neater. So, I'm going to create a new class called Widget Controller, or Widget Controller Base, which will act as a base class for widget controllers. And then I'm going to make another class, and this class will inherit from... where is it? It's user widget. Yeah, it will inherit from user widget. And in order for this whole like implementation of the MVC architecture to work, rather than using like Unreal's standard like user widget class, which you could make a blueprint from, I'm going to derive a class from that, make a custom one. So it's going to be TP, so for Twitch prototype, and then widget base. And I should also move my microphone close to my face again. I realized this the other day, and I made the same mistake again. But, this is going to be UI widget. So TP widget base, and this is just going to serve as a sort of base, like base widget class custom for this project, so that I can actually do some specific things with it, which is very helpful. And also, you notice I'm not like waiting a century for code to compile so I can get started on making another class or anything. It's absolutely revolutionary. I don't know why I never found out these settings sooner. It speeds things up immensely. It's crazy. So I already have a player controller class specific for this project. What I also need is to make a little thing called a player state. And a player state is good for like storing player specific data. And say for example you have like certain values like health and stuff that increases during a game's lifespan, but you want that to remain consistent for the player, but it doesn't matter for the enemies, because, you know, an enemy just dies, their object is destroyed and whatnot. You can have these values stored on the player state, and then you can save the player state to memory, and then sort of when you need to load up, like, oh, the player has this many collectibles, or has this much health, or had this much health remaining in the last time they were playing, you could load it up, and that's about it. It simplifies things. So this will be TP player state, this will be player public player, yeah. And the reason why I haven't like gone into the code yet is because I'm trying to think of what else I actually need for this to essentially function. So, oh yeah, I need specifically also a custom class for the HUD as well. So where is HUD? Yep, there we go. UI HUD. Yep, there we go. Player state. Oh yes, and also, because I will be using the ability system as well, which I can explain that. I can explain a little bit of Unreal's ability system, because, it's quite a bit. No, I'm not. Screw you. But yes. So we need a base ability system component, and then we also need something which is basically integral to this, and that's called an attribute set. So, TP attribute set. And that should also go into the ability system folder. And I know there's like a whole lot of nothing appearing right now. I'm just getting these classes set up for when we go into Rider. So, looking over at the folder structure for the other project that I've been working on, that's basically it for now. Though there's also some other bits that I'm wanting to, yeah. There's other things that I'm wanting to tweak and adjust as we go on. Right. So hopefully it doesn't take Rider so long. And while we're at it, while we're waiting for Rider to load up, I'm going to go back into Clip Studio to basically act as a kind of buffer for explaining the ability system. As best as I can, because I'm not purely an expert on this, but I can do as much as I can. So, the ability system. The ability system is basically, this helps manage, like, gameplay abilities, which would be anything that a player can do, like attacking, have some kind of... Hold on, I didn't finish writing this, sorry about that. But this would be stuff like attacks, and that could be different attacks, like normals, specials, etc. And it can also manage like attributes, which I've already mentioned attribute sets, but attributes, well, specifically attribute sets store attributes, and an attribute is basically, I'll just say this, it's basically data. Attributes in an attribute set is basically data, such as health, attack, defense, and so on. And the thing with attributes in particular is that a attribute will have what is called a base value, but also what is called a current value. And the current value is not like, this is, like, after it's been altered by, like, health increase upgrades and stuff. Current value is basically, does the player currently have any buffs or anything, or debuffs applied by gameplay effects? This is basically what this is. So if the player, for example, has an attack value of, say, like 20, and they receive a buff that increases it by 10%, so it increases it by 2, then the base value, that remains the same. The current value would just increase for as long as that effect lasts, and then once it runs out, it just goes down again. So, in order to sort of properly define, a current health and a max health and stuff like that, you would define them as separate attributes. So, for example, you'd say max health is its own attribute, and also health is its own attribute. The same would go for, like, if you were making an MMO and you had stuff like mana or stamina or something like that, and you had a maximum value for that, you would say that the maximum and what it currently is its own, like, they're their own separate values. That's basically what they are. That's what an attribute is, and an attribute set is just a collection of different attributes that you may or may not see. Important thing. I'll leave basically data because that's important. It's just a simple way of summing it up. So basically, data. Good point to make. Gameplay effects is something that I have already kind of briefly mentioned not too long ago, but gameplay effects basically like buffs plus debuffs. And I've already basically explained the concept of that and how that impacts attributes. And they're normally applied like when you've used the gameplay ability and it has an effect on either yourself or it has an effect on another object. That's normally when a particular attribute would sort of like be affected by a gameplay effect. Also, actually managed to get sweetener for my tea instead of like just purely using sugar, and it will be pretty good in the long run because as much as I don't mind having sugar in my tea, it's not very good for a type 1 diabetic to constantly just be indulging in just so much of the sugar. Oh. Also, I have realized there may have been an error in where it put my UI. I may need to actually go into open in Explorer because there's something I need to rearrange. It's kind of messed up some of the folder structure and where it wasn't actually setting things up properly. Hold on. I'm gonna have to close Rider. Don't worry, we'll get onto actual, like, writing the code soon. It's just that I didn't realize this would happen. So, we'll move to UI. And we'll delete this spare folder, because this doesn't need to exist. And then I'm going to reopen Rider, and hopefully the sorted things, I'm not too sure, but hopefully the sorted things.
Yo, check this out.
Oh no. Well, I'm probably gonna go via to mute. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for showing up. I hope you have a good rest of your night. This whole issue with the folder structure is now gonna bite me in the ass for the rest of the stream. There we go. And I realize I probably need to actually UI. Yep, I need to go into the. Ah! I need to go into the actual... I need to make correct folders and stuff! Right. Explorer, because corrections need to be made. So private, I need to make an actual widget folder in the private folder. Or in the private UI folder, because this is definitely not complicated to explain already. But... Open... Oh, no, I meant to open that in a separate window. Don't mind me, I'm just fixing some things outside in the File Explorer. Just give me a moment. Twitch prototype... Source... Public... UI... Widget... And the CPP file needs to go into its proper folder. Yep, there we go. Right, it didn't take too long to process the changes. TP hard. Right. If I go into the actual HUD, does it say it needed UI HUD? But I can already tell the widget itself needs to be corrected. UI with... Oh wait, no! That's actually... Huh. I was expecting it to be like an absolute, like, train wreck of, like, errors and stuff. But apparently, I was wrong. Which is pretty neat. I don't have to worry about that too much. Right, so, now that I've gotten that a little bit sorted out, sorry about it taking a while to sort this out properly. Haven't done it on stream for ages, so it's kind of like, oh god, I'm kind of trying to do stuff. I'm going to be doing things, again, kind of like a step-by-step thing like I've done before. I'm also going to close all the other code windows that I have had open previously. Also, I didn't mean to put a breakpoint there, or there. Multiple places where it's put a breakpoint, and that's kind of annoying. But, yes. The first thing I'm going to be working on is the widget controller, and the widget controller base, which is pretty important for, like, the MVC architecture, and for relay, and basically sending data to, like, to the UI from, like, the object that it's attached to. So, I'm gonna go through this kind of lickety-split, and I will explain things eventually. So, if you've been here before, also, there is kind of a weird thing where even though I have the ability system stuff all, like, written into the build file, it still won't do it, like, properly the first time, which is kind of strange. But it's not the end of the world. And we're going to be creating a struct called the widget controller params, because there are specific things that the widget controller will need to store. And we'll have two constructors. A layer controller pointer PC a layer state. Yes. View ability system component. Why does it do that? Huh? It's adding it added its own header file as an include, which is weird. Why are you adding your own header file as an include? That's so strange. ASC and view attribute set pointer AS. Right. And I'm doing that for now, just so it doesn't throw the error, because it throwing the error when I'm, like, trying to do stuff will probably bug me visually. So... Right. So we need an A player controller pointer. We're just going to call this player controller. But I don't want it to be caps at the start, because there is a specific way that I write my variables, and you've probably noticed this the entire time that I've been doing this project on stream, like in the past as well, like, or even during the bullet hell jam, where I just do, I believe it's snake case or camel, no wait, it's camel case, that's the name of the convention for how I write my variable names. Where, like, the first, like, the first letter for the first word in the variable name is just lowercase, and then, like, for any other words in that variable name, it's set to uppercase. So... the other one would be snake case, which is basically, if I was to say U ability system component pointer, it's going to include, no it didn't, right. So instead of doing what I've been doing with this, I'm just going to say ability underscore system, and this is basically snake case, where between each word you have an underline. Or an underscore, yeah. You have an underscore, like, between each, like, actual word in the variable name to separate them. And while I think I definitely used to do that before, or at least I did it for a little while, I had picked up on using camel case for my naming convention very quickly. So... ooh. Right. And then we're going to use a constructor initializer to, you know, say player controller, PC, player state, PS, ability system component, ASC, and attribute set, AS. And that basically means we don't need to write any code in here to say, oh yeah, we're saying this to this. We just have it done in this, which is literally the quickest way of doing it. So now the class itself. So public, protected, private. And I know that, like, having two public sections isn't necessary, but I just do it anyway because I like separating, like, my important public methods and variables, and just separating, like, the ones that are just used as getters or setters. I do that specifically because my brain kind of works in a funny little way. You know, it's a little gremlin in my brain that just decides, yes, this works better when it's organized like this. But, that's basically the quick of it. You property blueprint read only, and then category widget controller, and then this, then there, and then outside of the struct, we basically just have versions of the variables. So a player controller, player. So a player. No. Whoops. I'm kind of curling my hand around my mug. U ability system component. And then U attribute set. and then I'll take the U property and copy it for all of them. So just, there's a reason why I was writing out the actual variables first, so I could just do this and just make it quicker. And then I need to do my U functions down here. So U function, blueprint callable. This is going to be a void, and this is going to be a setter for set widget controller params, and we need a const f widget controller params reference, and this we're just going to call it WC params just to sort of shorten it, make it nice and presentable, because I like having, in some cases I like having parameters that are just short and sweet and to the point. However, we also need two things. We need virtual void broadcast initial values, and I'll explain what this is for, and then we will also need virtual void bind callbacks to dependencies. And I'm still a little vague on bind callbacks to dependencies. I can't remember the exact thing of what they do. So I will likely look at what I've got in terms of notes as well and refresh my memory on that. But I can explain what broadcast initial values does. But we'll be generating definitions for stuff now. Get those in. But for broadcast initial values and bind callbacks to dependencies, we do not write anything in these base methods. It's just for the sake of having like all the symbols resolved. And so Unreal doesn't just decide to throw a temper tantrum that, oh, there's an error. Nah! But this gets it all sorted in a way. But here, we're simply setting all of our little variables that we already defined outside of the widget controller parameters struct. So and then attribute set equals wc params.attribute set. There we go. Right. So that's basically, I believe, all we need to do for the widget controller, or for the base the base of the widget controller. If we needed like specific widget controllers, like for a HUD overlay or for health or something along those lines, we would have to derive from this base class and make our specific widget controller classes for that. But for all intents and purposes, that's the widget controller class done. Which, you know, it's short and sweet, it's to the point. It's like it doesn't do anything like but it just kind of, you know, it does a thing. It does a thing, like a little bit of a thing, but the rest of it is like the rest of what you need for this kind of thing to do is essentially just handled by, you know, anything, like any specific, like, subclasses of it. Right, so that's widget controllers done for now, until we have to make one that's specific, but we won't be doing that yet. The next thing we need to do is the widget, and widget will have some things that we need to set up. So let me just get my notes, because my head is a sieve. My head is a sieve at the moment. Some things stay there and the rest just kind of falls through. It's kind of bad, actually. So open with Notepad. There's only one, like, real method that the widget, like properly needs. So, first things first, public, protected, private, public. and this will be like a generic U object reference for widget controller. And the reason why I say that we need a generic U object is because, well, we don't know exactly whether or not, like, this is a specific instance of a widget controller. Like, and we still need to properly verify that whatever is assigned here is actually a widget controller and not some other random U object class. Which, honestly, can be literally anything, because literally everything at its base, all the way down the chain of culpability, is just a U object at heart, but everything else has its own things defined that differentiates it from its origin. So, also, a thing that I've learned pretty recently is T-object pointers, which allow you to... which are very useful for having, like... it's basically similar to, like, having a T subclass of for, like, a blueprint version of a class, but this is way better in a way, rather than just having a regular raw pointer. So we do that, make it a U object, and we'll just call it widget controller, because this is just our generic reference for a widget controller. Right, so... void widget controller set, and what's going to be different about this function is that we're going to make it a blueprint implementable event. And what that basically means is that we don't define it like... So, you know how... If you remember before, and you've remembered previously, as I said, like, for the widget controller, I basically said, oh yeah, we're just defining the methods here, like, the bodies of the methods here, so that it satisfies the symbols, and it doesn't throw, like, a temper tantrum for errors and stuff. I'm kind of half correct. However, there is one instance where, you know, it's not necessary to actually define a function body, and that is using blueprint implementable, because instead of implementing it within code like this, when you make, like, a blueprint that inherits from this C++ class, you essentially just, define what that method does in that specific blueprint. And that gives you a lot of flexibility outside of, you know, just writing the code in normally. So it's pretty helpful in case you want to actually have its, like, functionality and implementation actually behave in blueprints, where you have control over some other tidbits like blueprint, like, children of a character class or so on. And then we have a blueprint callable, just so we can say void set widget controller, and then we just have a U object pointer in controller, and this basically just says, yeah, we're just going to set the widget controller variable, and then we say widget controller equals in controller, and then once we do that, because we called that method, the one that's implemented in blueprints, widget controller set, we want this to be called once the widget controller has been set. So once this is done here, we'll just say widget controller set, and whatever it does in blueprints, based on the actual blueprint class, it will just do what it needs to do from there. That's basically it. Like, once like the widget controller variable has been set, and like it calls this method, it's out of the C++ class's hands. Whatever that specific, like, implementation does, that's basically what it's doing. It will just do it of its own volition. It doesn't need anything else, like, interfering or doing anything else. Right. So we've done two things. We've done the widget controller, which is important for the system, and we've done the widget base, which is important because then we can derive, like, user widget blueprints in, like, the editor, in the engine, without having to, like, rely on Unreal Standard 1. We could use this one, which has our specific things set up to work with the system that we're trying to put in. So, for HUD, now, I can't remember specifically what is done for the HUD, so I'm going to look at my notes again, because that will be helpful. Oh yes, right. So this is where I also should have made an overlay widget controller inheriting from the base class. And also, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break because I had iced tea earlier and I had normal tea during, like, earlier on in stream. And I, of course, need to go to the toilet because tea goes through pretty quickly. So I will be back in like 5 or so minutes. Don't go anywhere. Hang on. I will be just a few moments. So see you soon. Okay, that took a few moments, sorry about that, but I am back. So where I was looking at my notes for the HUD class, and of course, as I said, I actually need the overlay widget controller made specifically. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to compile and hope that this doesn't shit itself and die, because we never know with this kind of stuff during stream. Sometimes it doesn't have any problems, and other times it just wants to just scream and cry and throw a fit. But here's hoping this will be one of those occasions where things go pretty well. So, it will of course take a while because it's just kind of warming up. But, yes. Yeah, of course it's going to take a while. I did quite a bit in terms of, like, adding classes and writing methods and writing, like, other little tidbits of code. So this is definitely going to take some time. So, while we wait, I'm going to go in here. And I'm thinking to myself, because, you know, of course I am a thinky person, I think, quite a bit. sometimes against my better judgment and to my own detriment. But like in terms of like the ability system, because it would also give us like the functionality of if we wanted to lock abilities that the player can use behind like progression, then we can do that. So for example, if we didn't want if we wanted like a sort of, so if anyone has ever played Banjo-Kazooie, like the original Banjo-Kazooie, sorry, I'm gonna botch Banjo for a moment. I'm drawing him from memory. I have made his head frighteningly long. Give me a moment. Don't ask why I'm putting a lot of effort into this. This is funny. This is funny to me. Right, so, as you can see here, we have Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie. This kind of reminds me of Dubus Macubus, his art style for his animations. If you haven't seen those, that's pretty funny, so go look. But, so here we have Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie. And if you haven't played that, what are you doing? Go play it. It's a pretty fun game. Very great collectathon. But we have Banjo, and in like the tutorial, so you know, just as you're learning the ropes, like coming to understand how the game's mechanics and stuff work, and also throughout the game in general. So throughout the event, I don't know what to do for an adventure. I'll just do like a little hill with a flag to indicate adventure. You have abilities. And these abilities range. Like, so for example, you can have a ground pound in Banjo-Kazooie. You can also have like a little thing where Kazooie stands on her legs and can move faster with it, called the Talon Trot. And what Banjo-Kazooie does is it basically, until you reach a trigger for like, oh, this unlocks this ability, so if I keep moving on, so say etc. So unless like the player has reached like a certain trigger for it, like that ability will be locked. So for example, until like the player goes into the actual first level of the game, they can't use the Talon Trot until they talk to Bottles, the mole that basically serves as your guide, like your tutorial helper guide for the start of the game. And until you say level 1 toot, so say level 1 tutorial for the ability, then Talon Trot is currently locked and you can't use it. But once you reached it, so then you can use Talon Trot, and you can sort of like test it out within the space that it's like near, because how elements of Banjo-Kazooie is designed is that I feel like it's a very good example of like having a space nearby where you learn an ability that is intentionally designed to allow you to sort of test it out, experiment with it, and all that jazz. And it's pretty useful. It's pretty helpful stuff. So that I'm getting sidetracked. What I'm basically trying to say is that what the ability system could allow me to do for this project is, so in very much the same vein, I have my funny little rat person. And I'm also going to draw them a little silly goofy because I like doing that. I don't have a proper design for them, so leave me alone. This is my rat. Name pending. I'll do rat with 3 ellipses with 3 dots because that's funny. Rat. So for example, my rat has an air dash. And they also have a stomp and a wall jump. And what I could do with the ability system, because this is a strength of the ability system in Unreal, it basically means that, like, oh, you can have a set of abilities that a character or object can have, and if you wanted to, you could have them all just be available to the player, you know, just like that, just completely from the get-go. You could just have it done. But at the same time, you could also just say, what if I only want them to learn this one at a time within the tutorial? So first, they learn how to, like, if I cross these out, first they learn how to air dash across a gap or a few gaps. Then they, oh, I should have done this in reverse. This was kind of silly of me. But first they learn how to, air dash across a gap. Then they learn how to stomp through, like, a breakable obstacle so they can get to the next area of the tutorial. And then finally, to, say, reach the end, they learn how to wall jump. And the way that I believe the ability system, like, works is that you can just... And I have kind of dabbled with this a little bit in the past, though not to such a great extent, because it was literally me trying to shoehorn in the ability system, like, the basics of it, without actually properly knowing how it works. So, I'm gonna say that if I wanted to, and I probably will do this because this could be helpful, I'm going to use the ability system specifically for gating the player's abilities in case, like, oh, we have a tutorial and they're slowly learning things bit by bit. So... Ow. But, it's still compiling code. Damn. See, this is the problem. This is the problem that we will also still face. Although it doesn't take like 20 years to compile, the actual classes themselves to start work on, it will still take 20 years to compile the changes that I make, if there's like a lot of changes to make. So, as you can see here, it's still building 14 actions, which is not fun. So, yeah, we'll just be waiting for that. However, while I have you all here, I'll make another little window to, kind of, like, keep separate from this, because I want to keep the little banjo drawing. I like this little banjo drawing. This is funny. I just didn't know... I don't know why I did things like that, but, but yeah, no, I'm keeping, like, this little sketchy bit here, for now, because, the little banjo drawing was funny. But yeah, for, like, this point of things, like, in terms of what I have at the moment, so, in terms of the player, like, we have sprint, we have wall jump, we have stomp, we also have the air dash, and for like a while I was wondering, can I add like 1 or 2 more things? Am I racking my head over nothing? Can I just settle these 4 things and leave it at that because it would be relatively simple. But I have also wanted to possibly consider ledge grabbing. So, ledge grab. But only as like a sort of tentative kind of thing, because I would probably have to look into doing so much with animations and stuff, because like a lot of people recommend like using root motion and shit for this kind of stuff, because what a ledge hold and ledge climb would basically mean is that you're moving the player character's position from one point to another, and in order to do it properly without it being weird would be to just like, oh, if we wanted to make it weird, make it look normal, but without let me gather my thoughts. Oh yeah, no. Now I remember. So if we were to say, for example, have the player like ledge climb but without root motion. So I'll put the X there saying no root motion, and say, for example, this camera is attached to the player's capsule. So if, like, as you already know with like how most characters are set up in Unreal, like they'll have a capsule component for the collisions, they'll have a camera attached to it and whatnot. If you, and like the mesh is attached to the capsule, without root motion, if the player character plays a climbing animation, so I'll just draw this from like a zoomed out perspective so that this works. So you have like the top of the wall, you have the ledge, like the player will the player model will climb up. Don't get me wrong, it will climb up. But because it has no root motion, because root motion basically can be used to control the movement via an animation instead of, you know, having movement controlled just by input. And it's an alternative way that developers use to drive their players' locomotion. So for example, like you have an animation that's like running at a specific pace in the animation itself. If it has root motion, then the player character will just move at that pace. It won't be like, oh, it's set to an arbitrary value. It will move with that given pace, which is a pretty neat feature. But you may not always want that. So, for the most part, people just use, like, arbitrary values for movement. Because using root motion normally leads to things feeling very different. But it's very useful in some cases like this. So, because the player mesh has moved location, but no root motion is available, only the mesh, like the character model itself, has moved, and none of the collision or the actual camera has moved with it. It will just be still stuck in the on the ledge, and what will happen if like the animation ends is that the player model will just snap back into that place. That is basically what will happen. Like, the actual object's like move, like position has not changed. It has remained consistent. So it will just kind of stay in place, and that's about it. That's all that happens. Nothing, like, in terms of where the player is will change. They'll still be hanging onto that wall, which sucks. So, going back, what if, instead... I'll just stop undoing it there, because otherwise it will undo the camera. So, what if, instead, we had root motion enabled? And root motion is only really possible if you have like a proper like root bone on a character model and animations for that model, and it will basically sort of track like, oh, where like the movement is, and sort of recalculate the position based on where it's moved to. So for example, we had like, if we actually had the root motion and we had a root component, like root bone for that character, instead of like having what we had before where, oh, the player is on top of the wall, but actually it's only the character model and not the collisions or anything. Once again, we'll have a case of, oh, the player is now on the top of the wall. I don't know why I've made this like Spoderman, made this look like Spoderman, but you're getting it, I guess. You're getting this. But you have the player on top of the wall. However, because of root motion, essentially recalculating where the player should be during the animation. So during the climb animation, it will just kind of push like the player over. And then by the end of it, the player will be on top of the wall, the collisions will be on top of the wall, everything will be where it needs to be. And this is why I said I would need to do so much with, like, adjusting animations and all that jazz, because depending on where you look for, like free animation assets for, like, setting up a small indie project, the main one... Oh, sorry about that. The main one is Mixamo. Mixamo is a large collection of free, like, character animations for, like, games and film and other media and stuff, but it's mostly used by a lot of smaller devs to, basically set up quick animations, quick animations for a character, just in case you wanted it to do a specific thing, like attack with a sword, or use a rifle or gun or something like that, or other weapons. But basically, a big problem that the Mixamo animations face is that a lot of the time, they don't properly have root bones, or their skeletal structure is so different to what you would expect in an Unreal project that the root bones just don't work properly. And that causes problems where you have an animation, say you have a spin kick, and that spin kick pushes the player outwards, or pushes the player model outwards. Without root motion, or without a proper root bone, that character model kind of spins out, but where the player actually is just where it was before. And because of that, once the animation finishes playing, that model will just kind of snap back to where it was before, and it's just kind of awkward. So, what you would need to do is that you would need to take the animation, or, like, you would need to take that specific animation that you grabbed, and then... Oh god, sorry about that. You would need to drag that model into, say, Blender or something, and you would need to adjust the skeletal mesh, like the rigged skeleton for that model, so that there is a root bone, in order to be able to actually use root motion with a model. Also, the build succeeded with warnings, apparently. Even though it's not actually a problem, it's just kind of weird. Because that's my character, player character, that's had a warning, like, flagged for it. But that's weird. That's... But thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you liked my explanation of why the thought of even considering adding ledge grabbing and ledge hangs for a character of mine is dumb. Also, I swear to God, my overlay is broken. I didn't realize. If you're still watching, or if you're watching things back, and you followed, I appreciate the follow. But for some reason, my overlay from Stream Elements is just broken. It just doesn't like me. And I really need to go in, like, sometime, and just, like, fix things. Because this is kind of frustrating.
I'm really feeling it.
But yeah, that was a thing that happened. Once I actually get this fixed, I'll actually be able to realize that, oh shit, someone's just followed. Hello. It's broken once again. I thought by rejigging like the actual link, it would have fixed it, but apparently it did not. So, yo, what is up? Hello, welcome to chat. Sorry, I'm kind of waiting for stuff in Unreal to compile, and to finish opening up the engine. So this is kind of why I'm just kind of in Clip Studio right now. But I hope you're having a good day, hope you're doing well. And thanks for the follow if you just followed. I noticed that the thing went up. My overlay from Stream Elements is broken. I'm not actually getting the actual things coming through on here. So, sorry about that if it's a bit awkward me recognizing whether or not follows have come through, but know that I do appreciate it. I have been on active development right now, so you're just randomly hopping on. You know, that's all cool. And I hope that's been going well for you, because, like, everything just kind of has a little bit of a snag, but it's not so much of a snag, it's more so, like, just waiting for things to compile and be ready, because I need an actual solid-state drive for my data drive, rather than just, you know, a regular hard disk, because, you know, hard disks are slow. But, now that that's compiled, I can actually make the UI widget controller. I can actually make the subclass for the widget controller and make it the overlay one, because that's what I need specifically. So overlay widget controller, and we're gonna just do this. And I don't need to recompile anything because thank you, Ryder, for being so convenient. And now that that's done, back into Ryder, the overlay widget controller class is there, so I need to get that all sorted out. Hold on, wait a minute. I don't know why, my brain is kind of a mess of just like, wait, do I do this next or do that next? I swear to God, if I find out that I am, like, because I won't talk too much about that, but a diagnosis, if I find out a diagnosis, then it would explain a lot for me. But if not, then I still wonder what is going on with my brain. But do you realize that I am trying to think about what I'm doing next? Right. Okay, now I remember. I'm going into the overlay widget controller, and I'm going to start doing the code and stuff for that. So, and I don't want to accidentally put a breakpoint, even though that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of like, oh, this will just cause the code to stop if it gets to this line. Now this required, so there is going to be a lot of work for me since I'm going to finish a visual novel series in a couple of expected months. Ooh, that sounds very interesting. Like, how have things been going for you with that? Like, has it been, like, I mean, it's a silly question saying has it been easy work, because of course, like, working on anything there's going to be obstacles, things that happen, and all that jazz. It's not going to be smooth sailing the entire time, but how have things been with that? Because, like, I haven't properly indulged in, like, making visual novels as, like, at all. I've considered it, and friends have put, like, some of my friends have been putting, like, have been sort of discussing the idea of having, like, a visual novel or trying to make one, and then saying, hey, you could help us make it because you're a game dev person, aren't you? And I'm like, maybe? But, yeah, I haven't. But the volume will end at 13 to 21 expected chapters. Ooh. So you've still got quite a bit to go, but as long as, like, progress has been okay, then, you know, that's all that matters. the overlay widget controller, HCP. There we go. Right. Now I remember what I need is include ability system, and I need the attribute set because I need specifically to define attributes for an attribute set. That will be kind of like or I specifically need things for this. But yeah, struct F on attribute. Is this it? Am I remembering this correctly? Hold on. On attribute, it just doesn't like to do it automatically. It's kind of weird. And just in case I actually want to make blueprints of this overlay controller. So blueprintable and blueprint type. There we go. Right. So again, public, protected, private. Oh, whoops, I did the protected section twice. Whoops. And public. Like, as for me, for this project, like, I'm trying to get, like, the framework and stuff set up for a collectathon platformer, though I've done bits for the player, like, for some player abilities, though I am trying to do, like, the sort of framework for the UI and stuff, just so, like, it's just so, like, I can future-proof it and make it easier for, like, getting data and displaying it and all that jazz. But it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff trying to learn all these new things, because, like, hey, the absolute next thing that I learn could be the game changer, or, well, or it could be something that, like, helps ease things along a little bit and not be the absolute, like, be-all end-all that I actually do. Right, so we need the override for broadcast initial values, because we need to define something specific for this one to do. And then I have already it's broadcast initial values and oh yeah, bind callbacks to dependencies. That's what I need. It's those two things. And then this is where I need to declare multiple multicast delegates. Declare underscore dynamic multicast delegate, one param. Ouch. So F on health change signature. Define it a float. And we call it just new help. And then we just make one other one. And we may want, like, kind of like how either Banjo-Kazooie works, or how, like, I guess in a way, Spyro also does it, where, like, once you've, like, or Spyro 3 does it, where once you've completed one or two of the Sparks levels, like, Sparks gains another hit point. I guess that kind of works. That works in a way. It works in a way. So, but yeah, this will be helpful for this. just in case we want to do something like very fancy with it. And then I believe it's still in the public section. So, view property. Blueprint assignable. Category equals gas attributes. Oh, come on! I swear I need a new keyboard as well. So, F on health change signature, and I don't think this needs to be a pointer. This just needs to be on health changed. And then I need to do the same, but for max health. Because, right, so F on max health change signature on max health changed. And then we need the actual methods for them. So what we need is void health changed, and what we need is the F on attribute change data reference, and we call that data. By the way, I've released the demo while I was developing the full version. Ooh! If you drop the link, I'd say... Oh wait, no, actually, better idea, because there is a Discord that I do have a Discord server for, like, rather than just, like, throwing it into chat and possibly having Nightbot just be like, no. There is a Discord that you can join, and if you want to throw the link for it in a place, then, yeah, I don't mind checking it out at some point. So, go ahead. I should actually, in the Discord, because I do have like an arts kind of section in the Discord, but I should actually make a channel and say game dev stuffs. There we go. Just to differentiate, and also just have a place for people to share their game dev stuff, which would be pretty cool. So specifically for this, in the media stuffs category, there is a game dev stuffs channel. So if you wanted to share things there, then you can share things there. Oh, it needs to be const. I forgot. Whoops. So, const. Because it needs to be a const reference, not just a regular reference. It needs to be const. And all of this just so I can set up the HUD. There's a lot of legwork. A lot of roundabout legwork. But that's what it's all about. Cool. Right. Time Will Travel, Volume 1. Oh yeah, no, but definitely after stream, I will give this a look, because I do have like a bit of time, like after I finish stream before I go to bed, so I will definitely give it a look. Or if not, like before I conk out and go to bed, because UK times and whatnot, but like if I don't do it before I conk out and head to bed, then I will definitely do it at some point tomorrow. Like that will be on my list of things to do after I get in from going out, because that is a thing that I will be doing. But yeah, I will definitely give it a look. Like, it's nice it's always nice to see other people's work as well. Speaking of, I really should ask one of my friends from uni about playtesting stuff that he's been working on. So I need to ask them about that as well. It's always nice to sort of get, like, differing, like, interpretations of a thing from, like, looking at how other people do it and then just sort of go from there. It's simply just one way in which people learn. So we have broadcast initial values, which needs to be defined, but we don't really need to call the super, because that base method for this just doesn't do anything. And it's the same with bind callbacks to dependencies. This doesn't need to have, like, the super, like, call, like, the parent class call made. And there are other things that I'm missing as well. I think? No, according to my notes, I'm not missing anything, so... So UTP attribute set pointer attribute set equals, whoops, cast checked UTP attribute set, and then we'll just put, oh wait, TP attribute. Because the member variable is already called attribute set, so I'm just gonna be specific with this one. And because this should be okay, but I haven't actually defined attributes. So to do broadcast attribute values after defining attributes in set. So I will be doing that as a to-do, so for when I have that set up. And then health changed and max health changed. I don't need to have that have the attribute set stuff set up to do these bits yet. So health change dot broadcast data dot new. I think I've missed a thing again. Oh yeah, these methods needs to be const as well. So const, and then these need to have the signatures changed to be const as well. If on attribute change data. Am I missing a header file? No, I'm not. Data dot new value. Oh, on attribute change data is incomplete. Wait, but what do you mean this is incomplete? That's weird. What do you... It's so weird. That shouldn't be flagging that. Hold... Ah, why? Just, let me think. If on attribute change data.
This is a stupid dope mix.
Looking between the... what's going on? Is it really that? Hold on. Like, this can't be it. No, it's just not wanting to... what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing in the build file? So, gameplay abilities, yep, gameplay tags, gameplay tasks. Need to compare to my other project where I'm doing this. Yep. Gameplay abilities, gameplay tags, gameplay tasks. No, it shouldn't be having any problems, so for some reason this is just... Attribute sets. Unless there's something I'm missing. I might be missing a thing. Hold on. Right. I think for now I'm going to move on and get the attribute set stuff all set up because I really should have had this set up a bit sooner. It probably should have been one of the first things I did, but I split my priorities differently. So I'll close the widget controller stuff for the time being. Close some of my other notes that I have been open, la-di-da-di-da. Notes, that's what I need. I blanked for a moment. Yep, there we go. System. Public. Notepad, right. Perfect, right. Notes and stuff are up. Right. So of course we have like these things here all set up, but also we need to include the ability system component. So include ability system component.h. And then in order to make accessing attributes easier, we need to define attribute accessors. I have misspelled this. Whoops. I am also copying this from my notes because I am not writing all of this out because it would take me a while. And now that makes it easier to get attribute or get values for an attribute or set values for an attribute or so on from outside. So we need, once again, public, protected, private, and public, because this is how my brain works. It works like this, and if I did it differently, then it wouldn't be right. UTP attribute set. However, I still need to do replication, even though this is a single-player game. Virtual void get lifetime replicated props. So first things first, I will define the methods for this. So U function on rep underscore health. I didn't define the type. I didn't define the return type. Whoops! And then same again, but for max health. So void on rep underscore max health. And while replication is normally like a multiplayer thing to make sure that values are replicated across like the client, like all clients where needed properly, replication still kind of happens even in a single player game, though it's not like sort of like, oh, being broadcasted to other people. And in order for this to work, replication is still needed. But I do need const f gameplay attribute data reference, and this will be a reference again. Old health const, and then we also need a f the attribute data reference for old max health. And then I realized, oh shit, I should not have defined the methods before I did this. So I'll get rid of them. Whoops. That was my mistake, but now I can just redefine the bodies for the methods. Right. So now we can do the thing of setting up. So U property replicated using on rep health visible anywhere category vital attributes, or like health and stuff. So now that we're getting onto this, we need to make this an f gameplay attribute data, and this attribute is simply just called health. So attribute accessors, and we throw in the name of the class, so that would be UTP attribute set, and that would be health. And we throw in the name of the variable as well in order to actually sort of, you know, get like a whole bunch of accessor methods generated for this specific variable, which is very helpful. It will do it automatically. We don't have to bother with writing them all out individually. So F gameplay attribute data, max health, and then we have another attribute accessors, UTP attribute set, and then max health. Oh wait, I don't need that, I don't think. No wait, no I do. That was kind of silly of me to assume that I don't need this. Also, I wonder how close is the... Okay, so alright, the music is an hour and 43 minutes in. It won't be too long before, you know, this song or this set of songs ends. But that aside, you know, that's basically like the CDH file done. So do rep lifetime condition notify. So UTP attribute set. Health. Cond underscore none. What was it called? It's rep notify always. Rep notify always. Yep. And then we basically do the same but for max health, in order to make sure that this is replicated properly. Gameplay attribute rep notify. So we have UTP attribute set, health, old health. So this basically says, and while this isn't necessary for like a single player game, this is useful to know. So informs the ability system that a value health has changed. Old health is stored in case it needs to be rolled back. And this basically means that, oh, if there's a problem with like the connection and the thing, like the data that's passed onto it is invalid and it hasn't been verified properly, then it will just be rolled back to this old health value instead, rather than just changing it to the new one. And the same can be done for the max health. So UTP attribute set, max health, old max health. And that's basically what needs to be done for that. Although there's one thing that I do need for the attribute set, and that's actually to do init health. And I'm going to give it like an arbitrary value for now. I'm just going to say 40. And then init max health and say 40. And then that's basically it for this. And if you're wondering what like the init health and the init max health stuff is, if we go back here for the attribute accessors, the init health or init max health or init attribute or thing that we have for the attribute accessors, that was the method that was automatically generated by this line here using gameplay attribute value emitter property name. This generates the init method for that attribute, and it will just be init and then with the name of the attribute at the end. So, for example, init max health, init health, and for other stuff like init speed, init mana, init like jump height, and so on. That's if you wanted to have like all these different values with different accessors. So it's kind of helpful for that. Also, I realize I don't have my water near me, so I need to go grab that. Hold on one moment. Because I have been talking constantly for a long time. Like, holy, that's been a lot of talking that I've been doing for, like, uninterrupted for a long stretch of time. Oh. Oh, right, perfect. So that's the attribute set stuff set up. So I can close the attribute set. Now for the overlay widget controller, I'm still confused on why this is choosing not to work as it's a... Hello, Dragon! I am a... Did you message me in DMs and you're trying to get my... Oh, wait, no, you haven't. So you are just here. Hello! Bird Strike, I know I've been... Oh, no, this is actually Capcom vs SNK 2. I have been listening to the one long 2-hour video that you... No, this is Capcom vs SNK! This is what the video says! But yeah, hello. Oh, you're saying you... Yeah, no, I realized that a second later. Oh, you're reading with a party of 4. Hi, Heater. Hi, Heater, and everyone else who are joining right now. I am currently writing the funny code words. It is Pebble Capital. This stream can fit so many boys. Is nice to have you all here, and I hope you had a good rest of your stream here. Let me think. So on health change.broadcast, this should work now. Data. Well, now it finally works! Whee! Right. Well, one server calls me... I think we just called you Cappy from... It seems you're a raider. I like raiders that much. Whis, get the raid maker! Me, if I ever got a job at Bungie making raids and stuff, one can dream. Me when me. Hello? Right. But to everyone just joining, hello, hello! Glad to have you here. Also, I imagine Beerus in a tired Keith David voice. That could work, actually. But to everyone just joining, hello! I'm game deving stuff right now, and I am writing code. And if you ever want me to explain what the hell I am talking about, then I can. Also, I'm going to go back over to Clip Studio because there is a funny thing that I did. And I sent it to Heater as a screenshot, but I'm going to focus on it now, as I was talking about an example earlier, but Banjo. but I am highlighting this because I somehow managed to draw Banjo and Kazooie like this. And I think it's kind of funny. You look so goofy and silly. But yeah, when is the DMC? No, I'm never playing DMC 2. I know I have the DMC collection on PC. I am not playing DMC 2. Never. I refuse. I refuse to touch that game. There is only one. There is not one thing that can, not one thing or person that could make me do that. I don't need the achievements for DMC 2. Some things are worth just not doing. No longer DMC fan if you don't play it. That's fucked up. That's messed up. Even if he did, I would not play it. Even if. See, Virgil maybe. But for people... Wait. I'm going to have to go over things for, like... Hold on. I need another little thing open in Clip Studio to keep things separate from what I've been doing already. One moment. Basically, chat, he's not gay, I was lied to. What do you mean? But yes, what I'm basically saying is that, normally how I used to do it in game development, like in a project, is that, so let's say that this is the player, so this is you, may not be Stinky. Can hold so much data. So I'm going to go all funny on this. So for example, this is the player object. They may not be Stinky, and they can hold so much data. And this would just be the UI. So for example, like a health bar, score, and so on. And I was doing this earlier, so it's kind of fresh in my head. How I used to do things is that I would just directly pass things from the player to the UI and get it from like things directly from the player to the UI and whatnot. And while this was kind of okay, this is kind of like making the UI, forcing it to be entirely dependent on having the player exist. So say for example this player doesn't exist, then this whole thing just kind of breaks because you don't have an object to get the data from. So this just breaks. But what I'm doing instead, for the most part, the stream, is I'm implementing an architecture that kind of removes this direct dependency and makes it a bit more abstract. It's called the Model View Controller architecture, or... Oh yeah, no, the Banjo image I sent you. Before I move on with this, I was explaining, like, things that Banjo-Kazooie did that I could potentially do for my game, where if you've played Banjo-Kazooie, then you know this, but if you haven't, where at the start of the game, like, when you're learning, like, the tutorial bits from Bowls, and also other abilities, like, further on in the game from Bowls, that you can't use them until you, like, reach the flag to unlock them. And I was basically saying, oh hey, what if I also did this for my platformer, where I have the player learn things bit by bit, and then once they reach the point that they can learn things, then it unlocks that ability for them, and Unreal's gameplay ability system kind of lets me do that. But in the process of doing that, I drew Banjo like this. And I don't know how I did it. I just did it, but I love it. He looks so silly. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of Goobus McDoobus. Like, his art style in a way. But, But I liked how I drew this banjo. It was pretty funny. It was pretty cute. It's pretty silly. I'm just gonna screen cap it as well again. I have the feeling that if I just made this like a funny little thing, like an emote or something, then people would not complain. And that would be sick. But yeah, that's what I did for them. And back to what I was saying. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to implement something called the model view controller architecture. And I said this earlier as a thing because I knew she would pop off as soon as I mentioned this. But this architecture dragon is abbreviated to MVC. And now I will pause and wait for applause or holy shits and stuff like that. It is abbreviated as MVC. Let me just do a funny, like, you know, like the... Oh, that wasn't the reaction I was expecting. You motherfucker. How about this? Is this better? You have subverted, you most certainly have. You really did do that. Yeah, marvel. Oh, but yeah, and this what this basically says is that there's three parts of this. There is the model. NBC, yeah, no, it's going to, because people have been waiting for this kind of shit. So there's three parts of it. There's the model, which is the data itself. So for example, like data on the player and stuff, like that's where this would be stored. You have the view, which again, like before, the view is just the UI, the overlay and stuff. I don't know how to do an infinite. You're gonna teach me how to do a fucking infinite. So this would be like the UI. In Unreal's case, this would be the widgets. And then sitting in the center is the controller, and the controller basically just acts as a middleman between the model and the view, so that the view isn't directly depending on the model. You can have a controller for a specific like widget, and you can have multiple ones for like different widgets and stuff. But what this basically does is that the controller gets the data from the model, and then once it has that data, it will instead just pass it on to the view. And having this extra layer like makes a dependency one way instead of like having it be like, oh, this one thing depends on so many things, and instead it's just like, oh yeah, this one thing just does this one thing, and that's about it. And it makes it a lot better to manage. That's basically what I've been doing for, I guess, the entire stream, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Though the one actual part of it that I'm trying to finish up is the finding the callbacks and stuff, and I need to get, where is overlay widget controller, there we go. Oh yeah, and also I need the actual widget set thing, hold on. I'll just put it on in the background when I'm trying to just do stuff in training mode in the collection when it comes out. That's gonna be funny. It's gonna be terrifying too. How does one actually come up code? It's fascinating me how people just come up with something to write which results. You see, it's... Give me a moment. My brain... It's a lot. Like, sometimes there's code that, like, oh, it's just a simple thing. It does a little thing. It doesn't take much to write it. And it's, like, the smallest thing you can think of. And then... Yeah, I know, like, in a lot of cases, depending on where you go, like... See... Imagination and wishful thinking, yes. But I'm also going to let you in on a little secret. And this is present with basically all parts of the games industry, and also software development in general. It's a lot of stealing. No code is original. No one's code is original. It borrows elements from other bits of code that other people have already written. I also didn't switch to Clip Studio because I wrote stealing in the... Yeah, it's just how... Yeah, no, like, there have been some times where I've somehow managed to come up with things, like, on my own without having to sort of look things up. But that's very rare cases. A lot of the time, it's taking things that people have already done and adapting it. It's adapting it to just sort of suit what I need to do with it. And that's basically a lot of what programming can be. A lot of it can be just, like, you have something that you've either already written before, or someone else has already written before. And what you're basically doing is you're just adapting it to what you need it to be. Oh yeah, no, now I remember. Right, so on health change dot broadcast, and this needs to be DB attributes. Get health, and then on max health change dot broadcast, and it's TP attributes get max health. There we go. You mean code is like being content farm? Kind of. Same as like, I'm into my stuff and I'm really good at coming up with making fictional combat tanks, but that's just making shapes that work. But people writing text and numbers is just crazy for me. To be, yeah, no, like, yeah, this stuff doesn't make too much sense to people. In a lot of the cases when I'm trying to do something that's a lot simpler, like making a character move or jump off of a wall, it's easier to explain how that works, because I've already explained in a funny way about, like, object normals. Yeah, if-else statements are, very prominent, and also, that's all you learned when you took coding. They taught you how to make spaghetti code, Dragon. You slop in that spaghetti code, and it's like, yummy spaghetti. I realize I need to actually do stuff for the player state as well, but I can get to that. I can get to that, and I will never forget when I was learning. Your teacher was shit. So honestly, Cappy, back when, like, in university, when I had my lecturer teaching us Unreal, he made it so unfun to learn that after university, I just stuck with Unity and C# programming language, or the Unity engine and the C# language after that for, like, the longest time, because he made learning C++ and Unreal so unfun. He made it the worst thing ever. And then I've just been learning this, like, relearning and learning so much in Unreal for, like, the past year or so, like, finding tutorials on my own and also doing online courses and stuff, and it has been a way better time doing it. So I'm a lot more used to it. We wrote a complaint to the principal. He didn't teach us. He left the classroom for nearly 30 minutes every so often. He didn't explain anything. It was kind of a similar situation with, like, our programming teacher. It's not that he didn't explain things, like, he eventually got to the point. But here's my key word. Eventually. He eventually got to the point, because he would waffle on. And you want to know what he would always use as some of his examples for, like, oh, here's what you can do in Unreal. He would use Tekken 7 as an example, and then every so often when we were trying to do stuff, he would always talk about Metal Gear Solid. It's like, yeah, like, cool, this is, like, cool looking at this kind of stuff, but you surely don't expect us to just kind of do this. And he would always go on about, like, on a tangent repeatedly about stuff, and it was just like, can we get to the point, please? I'm here to learn code. He is calling himself an expert and calls tech support at the school because his laptop ran out of battery. Music is a tiny bit loud, by the way. Yeah, I can sort that out. I can turn it down a little bit. There we go. I mean, for the game dev stuff, like the game dev stuff, a lot of it is just like me talking about stuff that I do or things that I've learned and stuff. So I can kind of see that, and it's pretty cool. The entire class failed as a... Yeah, no, that honestly, I had a similar experience, but that wasn't at university. That was back when I was in college, so that was when I was 18. We had a module that we were learning about the impact of computing on the world and stuff, like big data and all that jazz, and how we have like different security stuffs now. And our tutor for that module just didn't explain things very well to us. We all had to do a resubmission for that assignment. Like, all of us on the course had to do a resubmission for that assignment because they just did not explain it that well. And after that first submission, our actual program leader for the course took over teaching that module and, like, taking us through the assignment and bits. And the second time around, we all got very good fucking grades for it. So, you know, wow. Crazy. We had an exam nobody knew about, and he made us write code on paper, so after 20 minutes of protest arguing, people just wrote their names, stood up, and left. We were working on Arduino chips. God fucking damn, that just sounds miserable. That sounds utterly miserable. Also, I'm not keeping an eye on... Yeah, no, this is going to take a while to compile again, because I've been writing so much code. So, once again, we're in the state... Like, it's sad. Like, when you have a thing that you really just want to go all in and learning, and learn, and then you just kind of like, yeah, this one thing is preventing me from enjoying it so much. For you, and it was definitely, and a lot of the times, why is it a lot of the times? A lot of the times, it is definitely a teacher that makes it difficult to enjoy learning it. Like, it kind of sucks in that way. And... Hey guys, welcome to Funny Code Compilation Part 7. Yeah, you've been here before, Heater. You've been here before. So yeah, I went back to trying to find an apprenticeship. AKA in German. I do not know how to pronounce this. Heater, do you know how to pronounce this? Because I know you used to study German. Getting trained to a profession. So now I will finally sign a contract. You know, at the very least, that's like good, like great progress on your part, like being at that stage where you get to sign a contract and do stuff. Whereas in terms of the games industry, I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on it, Cappy, but I have spoken to other people plenty of times about the fact that the games in... Yeah, this is Third Strike OST, Dragon. It's the instruments, yeah. Like, the fact that the games industry itself is just kind of imploding, and is still imploding. Like last year we thought was rough for layoffs and shit, but, it got worse. 2024 somehow looked at 2023's layoffs and thought, yeah, what if I did this, but absolutely worse? Like, Kerbal Space Program 2. I wanted Kerbal Space Program to be good before I buy it. Yeah, no, like I still think the biggest crime in all of the layoffs and all of the studios shut down was Tango Gameworks being shut down because they were pitching a sequel to Hi-Fi Rush. And I'm so upset because we never get to see a sequel to Hi-Fi Rush because that studio just doesn't exist anymore because I sent you a voice note. hold on. I don't think I have... I do not. So what have you sent me, Heater? Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's like, last year was like, let's send everyone to the COD mines. And now it's like, oh, hey, you know, unique and cool game development studios that come up with fun, fresh ideas that rejuvenate the industry instead of, you know, having the same corporate schlock all the time. Yeah, no, let's get rid of those and make it, let's just homogenize the games industry so we have the same shit that would have been produced like 8 years ago being produced today, like The First Descendant. Which, I've seen screenshots of that game, I just think, why? You're just... The style of that game just looks... ugh, terrible, and is, like, in the obvious sense of being too sexualized and stuff, because that's what it is. My Kerbal Space Program was fully modded, and it's so beautiful, and it's sad to see the sequel being laid off. Like, you have high hopes for something that could exist, and it just never existed. Like, I'm so glad that people who had been waiting for so long for any announcement or any news or any progress on Metroid Prime 4 finally got that this year with the recent Nintendo Direct. I am happy for them. I am happy that they finally got that. The crazy thing is, too, EA also ruining it. Oh yeah, no, like, F1, like the F1 games, like, I've only played like a few of the F1 games. I used to like the F1 games when I was younger. But, no. It feels like it's getting worse. And yeah, fighting game devs really have been looking at things and thought, you know what, we're going to cook. Sparking Zero is, of course, the first thing that comes to mind with this, because, honestly, Sparking Zero looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's just, I can't wait for that shit. And yeah, we'll get the remake news for Final Fantasy IX eventually, Dragon. You'll get it eventually. You'll get your crumbs. You'll get what you want. You'll get what you want. EA bought the devs and said, yeah, no, it fucking sucks. How do you make microtransactions for F1? How do you do that? Like, what the fuck? God, I'm so glad they used Xenoverse and Fighters. Yeah, no, like, it honestly feels like, even though, like, Fighters had its time with, like, making the DLC and getting that done, and having, like, rollback eventually implemented, even though when it was first implemented it was kind of rough. It also felt like Xenoverse was going on for so long because they were like, yeah, we're going to, yeah, we're just going to, keep doing this, and eventually, we'll get out Sparking Zero. Clothes, racing suit skins, helmet skins, voice messages when you win, custom... But I'm trying to think. There was another game where it's like, oh hey, you get to get custom cosmetics for your character, who you don't even bloody see! I remember seeing that around, and it's ridiculous. One game had street cars and a home you can customize. It made the game unstable, and the cars sucked. Yeah, no, that happens. That just happens. But if we get more stuff like the restraint, yeah, though, that would be pretty sick if they made things a lot more dynamic with future DLC. Like if you make DLC that's fun and dynamic and sick, then that just brings more life into your game. Like, also having to unlock basic features you had in every game. Like, ooh, right. One thing I utterly despise. And you just don't get me started on games that just say, yeah, you know what we had as a basic feature in this previous game? Let's just take it. Let's just cut it away and let's resell it to you. Let's just make you pay money for it when we made it free in the previous game. I hate that. I utterly hate that. Also, sorry about that. My rage broke. But yeah, points aside, I hate that so much. That is the worst thing ever. Such a Dragon. Don't get me started on base game D2. Like, like, for all intents and purposes, like, D2 is in a way better position than it has ever been. That much is certain. Destiny 2 is in a way better position than it has ever been, especially with the release of the final shape. They cooked with that. They're back, like, it's sad that, like, yeah, no, don't get me started on the sunsetting. The sunsetting was bullshit, and then they eventually said, yeah, we're not sunsetting anymore. But, yeah, let me think. Oh yeah, no, like, it's in a better position than it was. They cooked with the final shape. Though it's kind of sad that it had to be when they were at the, like, brought down to their knees, back against the wall, that they decided, you know what, we're going to we're going to cook, we're going to fucking flambe this bitch, and we're going to make it perfect. And that's kind of sad. But base game D2, because here's the thing, like, I've been playing Destiny since, like, partway through the first year of Destiny 1, and I have been a D2 player since launch. But the absolute state that that game released in was... like, don't get me started on what the hell happened for systems between the end of D1 and the start of D2. Like, this is me going on a bit of a tangent. And also, sorry, I'm still a bit snotty. Since EA's takeover in 2020. I'll quickly look at this before I, Oh yeah, no, that's just abysmal. What the hell happened to F1? What the bloody hell happened? Oh yeah, so, this is gonna be a bit of a tangent. I'm gonna go on about, Destiny 2 stuff. This is kind of explaining, like, the history of systems changes that they did from base game, all the way up until the point that we are at now with the final shape. So, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna go into Clip Studio, and, I'm gonna get rid of this thing I was explaining, like, movement abilities, and, like, that was for, like, explaining, like, animation, root motion, and stuff. But, this year, the game had such an awful car handling, it was so unrealistic, and so phone game, like, they were forced to make a patch before the game. If you see a game that has, like, a massive, changing system, but if you have a game that has, like, a massive, like, day one patch, and it's like, uh-oh. But, so, let's see. Right, diagram time. So D1. So if we say D1 had random rolls for weapons. So you had random perk random perk rolls for weapons. You had random stat rolls for armor. I wish Dragon Ball games took more from other games, because, like, we started getting that with 21, but come on, Charlotte is right there. And last year, the handling was good. Yeah, like, don't fix what ain't broken. Like, that's so stupid. But random armor stats. Like, we had, like, bounties. Like, what we used to have before the final shape now. But, like, bounties. We had a good system for stuff. Then, we go into base game D2, like, so vanilla D2, so D2 base. So we gutted all of the random weapon rolls. So static. Oh, Adge. Right. Also, it's still taking its time to compile because there's so much. Ah, the grind of being an affiliate streamer. Oh wait, the fighting game music's done now. Ah! Right, fighting game music's done. I'm gonna choose a thing for like the last half hour or so, and Opera's gonna give me ads, or YouTube's gonna give me ads. And I know there's probably no point of me actually just doing that, but I just like having the music just be a constant. YouTube gave me 2 unskippable ads while I'm waiting for this. Oh wait, no wait, no, actually. A long night in Xenoblade. No, an extra long day. There we go. Right. So, back to what I was explaining before. So base game D2. So we had D1. We had random weapon rolls. We had random armor stats. We had bounties. We had, like, exotics being fairly rare. So, fairly rare exotics. Also, weapons had levels. Like, or you could, like, level up and up, like, unlock the perks for weapons, which was pretty cool. We go into base game D2. So, random weapon rolls were completely gone. We instead got static weapon rolls. Like, all instances of a particular weapon had the same perks. They had the same perks on each copy. You literally only had to get 1 copy of that weapon, and you basically had the best roll for it. That was literally it. Armor stats were bastardized. There was literally a case of, each armor only put 1 point, like, into free stats. And, like, basically, it simplified it. It made it stupid. Shaders, which, you know, shaders in Destiny you use to color your armor, and in Destiny 2 colors your armor and your weapons, except for exotics, because exotic weapons, because they have ornaments and stuff, and you can't color exotic weapons. Like, this was a problem. And I'm going to explain why, because I can remember this. It's been 7 years. I can remember this very vividly. So, for shaders, nowadays, and for, like, a long time since they decided, you know what, we're fixing this now, shaders used to be that you did not have, like, oh, you got the shader and you just have it for, like, being able to apply to everything. What you had was, like, shaders became consumables in base game D2. And you had to get, like, either buy or get, like, more copies of a shader to be able to use it, like, for multiple pieces of armor or multiple, like, weapons and stuff. Which was so stupid. That was so goddamn stupid. They also like, a lot of what they did basically bastardized the whole process of, like, farming for weapons and armor and stuff. Like, it simplified it so much and made it, like, very much not worth, like, farming for things. Like, it would work if it was, like, 1, easy to get them, and 2, if it wasn't heavily monetized. So, next we're on to Curse of Osiris, which was the first little micro DLC for D2. So we still had the same problems, but what they were doing were they introduced masterworked weapons, which also the code finished compiling, but I'm still explaining this. So they introduced masterwork weapons, which basically said, oh hey, if you have a masterwork weapon, it boosts a certain stat. Masterwork weapons are basically, since they were introduced, have been present throughout D2's whole lifespan since then. I'm trying to remember some other things here or there that might have been wrong at this point in time. But Curse of Osiris as a whole was a very mid DLC. It was the worst. A lot of people consider it to be the absolute low point for Destiny 2. And this was only in, like, partway through its first year. Then in Warmind, which was the second little micro DLC in the first year of D2, because this was when they decided, yeah, we're going to do... This is when they used to do, like, annual passes for, like, little DLC tidbits instead of seasons. Or season passes. They started introducing catalysts for exotics, which, for everyone who doesn't know, and that is most likely everyone here, catalysts basically said, oh hey, you can now masterwork exotic weapons, and when you masterwork an exotic weapon, it basically gains either a bonus to a stat, or it does like a little unique effect. And these have basically been in the game for D2's entire lifespan up until this point as well, which are pretty fucking sick. But we still had, like, a little bit of a problem with, like, bounties and stuff, and it was kind of stupid. Also, Warmind was the very first instance of having, like, a secret exotic mission in this game, and it was very cool at that point in time. It was a new thing for people to do at that point in time when they were kind of starved for anything great. So that happened. Then I'm gonna have to erase parts of the diagram at some point because I'm writing a lot. Then we go into Forsaken, which was D2's second year, and there's a bit more depth to armor and stuff, and weapons again. Random rolls for weapons came back, which should have been a thing in the first place, but because of Activision and stuff, they were forced to dumb it down and bastardize it. So random weapons were back. They also introduced bows in this expansion, which, like, despite me not using them too often, bows are still a pretty cool fucking weapon. Oh yeah, also, I forgot to mention, base game D2 gave grenade launchers and submachine guns for weapons, and also linear fusion rifles, which are like little sniper weapons, but like they fire bolts of energy instead of like being a sniper. But also, oh, I just remembered one thing that was miserable about. It was how weapons were divided. It was... Right, sorry about that. I repressed this from my memory. Holy shit. Oh, whoa. Wow. Like, in terms of... Basically, yeah, like, there was a time where you could, like, before they essentially, like, brought it back, it was like, oh, you could rock with, like, a double primary or whatever. Certain weapon types would only be able to be equipped in certain slots. So, for example, shotguns, which, for the longest time, were just like a normal weapon that you could have in like your secondary slot in D1. Yeah, no. Like, if you had played base game D2, then you would probably remember this. But shotguns could only be used in the heavy slot, and I think it was the same with fusion rifles as well. I can't remember. Yeah. You got the disc for PS4 for 2. Yeah, no. I'm not surprised that you managed to get it that cheap. But then there's me who paid full price at launch. But yeah, just never just like that sucked. That was terrible. But yeah, ammo capacity was the worst too. Yeah. Also, like, to some degree, like, in Forsaken weapon slots were kind of back to normal. Like, weapon slots were kind of back to normal. They were okay. Then, throughout, like, Forsaken's lifespan, we get the Forges from Black Armory, which were pretty cool. They were a pretty cool activity. And they got rid of them with Beyond Light, which sucked. But Forges were pretty neat. That was Forspoken, not Forsaken. Then in Joker's Wild, which was, like, another little... Like, Forsaken still did the annual pass thing, but, like, had 3 little micro kind of season DLC things. Then there was the... So, Gambit Prime. So, once upon a time, for the game mode Gambit, there used to be 2 versions. There used to be Standard Gambit, and there used to be Gambit Prime. And... like, Gambit was always PvPvE. But Gambit Prime was specific, like, it was more of a role-based thing. Gambit Prime actually had armor sets for, like, a specific role, like invading or grabbing moats or doing other stuff, like, like defeating, like, enemy blockers and stuff, which was pretty cool. And then they had the Reckoning, which was like a little thing where you go to get, like, Gambit Prime gear, and then you go back into Gambit Prime, and you get the things to go into the Reckoning, which was pretty cool. Dragon, I'm leveling with you. There is a reason why I do not play PvP too often, only when I'm desperate for getting new stuff. And then Season of Opulence introduced the Menagerie, which was such a cool, like, gauntlet thing, and you got to personalize what gear you got from the end. That was cool, and I'm glad, like, they've kind of done something similar to it, like, in recent times, but that pure activity, that origin for it, was the best that they did it. And I'm sad that the original Menagerie just hasn't come back. I mean, they wouldn't bring it back, but it sucks that it isn't around anymore, because that was sick. But, if I clear most of this, because I'm running out of room, so we have all of that, and then we go into, I can't get rid of anymore. I need to actually erase it with the eraser, with the rubber. I mean, D1 always had PvP. PvP has always been a thing. But yes, next we have D2 Shadowkeep, which was the origin of Season Pass. Or Destiny 2 Season Pass. Your DLC codes got stolen. No! She cannot play the DLC. But, Shadowkeep was the origin for the Season Pass structure that D2 rocked with for a long time. But overall, Shadowkeep was kind of a nothing expansion. Like, we got finishers for, like, PvE enemies, which were... they're cool. Finishers are pretty decent, especially if you have a goofy one. So we have all the seasons that happen between Shadowkeep and Beyond Light. I'm not going to touch upon those because they're mostly the same thing. Though Trials of Osiris was eventually brought back, which was yeah, it was in a state when they brought it back. Then there was Beyond Light, which added Stasis, which was the first edition of Subclass 3.0. Which is what all subclasses in Destiny 2 currently operate off of. Which is like, oh hey, you have aspects which give you like different like main behaviors for your abilities. And then fragments which like affect smaller parts of your abilities and how that subclass performs and how it interacts with weapons and stuff. Which is pretty fucking cool. And I'm glad that they made this a system. Even though at the launch of Beyond Light, Stasis was an absolute nightmare. And I still have... Yeah, DLC is kind of confusing, unless you have someone to help... Oh, sorry. Unless you have someone to help you navigate it. But, like, in terms of, like, Stasis, I still have like, cold shivers. Because Stasis is kind of ice. But yeah, I still have cold shivers whenever I hear a Warlock use a Stasis super in the Crucible. Because you hear that from across the map. And back when Beyond Light launched, if you rocked into Crucible in a 6v6 match, and most of the enemy team were Warlocks using Stasis, you basically should just uninstall the game. Because when they used that super at launch, it was just a guaranteed kill. It was just guarantee you were dead. So that happened. There were other changes that they were making across, like, over time as well, which was pretty cool. Then eventually there was the D2 in the way of you don't know what actually gets you content, and Xenoverse 2 is just poorly organized. Like, yeah, you definitely need someone who's a bit like, yeah, I know what's going on to sort of explain things. Then we got the 30th anniversary, which isn't an expansion. It's a small little micro DLC that they released during the large time gap between, like, in the large time gap between when the last season of Beyond Light's year would have normally ended and when Witch Queen actually released. And yeah, yeah, that was stuff that happened then, which was 30th anniversary pack was cool. The dungeon they added was cool. They brought Galahorn back from Destiny 1, which was sick. They gave us a lot of Halo-themed and also other Bungie-themed weapons too. And that was all sick. And that stuff is still in the game, which I'm very thankful for. So then we go into Witch Queen, which introduced one of, I believe, the most divisive things in the game, which are craftable weapons. Witch Queen was the impetus for craftable weapons. And this doesn't go for absolutely every single weapon. This only goes for, like, specific weapons and weapon sets, where you can get a thing that lets you progress a pattern, and once you get enough of them, you get to craft that weapon, and then you can level up that weapon and get better perks for it. In a way, it kind of borrows from... I don't remember the origin. I don't remember the origin of the Clean Your Vault stuff, but it was definitely becoming more and more prominent around about that time, I think. Like, thank you very much, Datto, for that, but, so, crafted weapons kind of borrowed a bit from D1, where you could level up weapons and unlock the perks. However, crafted weapons were very different in that you could swap out the perks. You could, like, if you were, like, dissatisfied with, like, perks you selected before, then you could just choose new ones. And what it basically did was, like, yeah, you're basically farming for the, for things to actually unlock the crafted weapon. But then once you had the crafted weapon and leveled it up enough, which back in, like, when it launched, leveling up was a nightmare because you had to find specific farming spots for that. You basically had the god roll for the weapon, and people, like, on the one hand, people were like, yeah, this is good. This doesn't, like, this means you don't have to constantly try and grind for a weapon, like, god roll. But at the same time, there are also the other half of the community that's like, yeah, but this makes it boring. This kind of ruins, like, getting god rolls and stuff. Though I didn't mind either way. It was like, oh, shit. Cool weapons and stuff with funny perk combinations. And also, throughout Witch Queen's year, all of the other subclasses got 3.0. So the aspect and fragment system that was introduced with Stasis got introduced to all the other subclasses at the time. So Void, Solar, and Arc. Those subclasses got the subclass 3.0 treatment. So they got all the swappable aspects and fragments and stuff. Oh yeah, glaives, another weapon type that was introduced. Glaives. I was excited before Witch Queen launched for the glaives, but then looking back I was like, they're kind of they exist. So Witch Queen happens, like the entire year of Witch Queen happens. Then we get to Lightfall, where they change a lot of the onboarding experience. So Guardian ranks, which is like, oh hey, we're kind of guiding you rank by rank to do different things in the game. And they were like, oh, this is going to help people get on board a lot better. And in a way it helps, but at the same time, it was still a bit, yeah, kind of but it exists, it works, it helps. You also get to give commendations to other people, like them being the best dressed Guardian in the group, which is cool. Strand was introduced, which also came with the subclass 3.0. Oh yeah, they completely changed the mod system. So that, like, they basically bunched together, like, a whole bunch of the old mods into, like, specific types. They removed certain mods altogether. And this isn't the last time that this has happened. It happened quite recently in the final shape, but they removed some weapon mods. But this is I'm mostly touching upon the armor mods, where a lot of things were adjusted and changed just because of the changes to artifact perks and everything else with build crafting. Some people are happy with it, and some people are like, why? And Lightfall as a whole, in terms of its story, was shit. And we had to wait for answers way further into the year, and that upsets me. But eventually it got kind of ironed out. And then the final shape happened. And trust me, I'm only simplifying things, so I'm not stood here for the entire rest of the stream, because I do actually want to show off little bits of, like, what's changed to people who haven't seen it yet. So, the final shape, we're finally here. So, once again, weapon mods have been changed. So, some mods were removed entirely, because some weapon-based damage values were adjusted, and they thought, yeah, we don't really need these mods anymore. So they changed those, and got rid of them. Prismatic was introduced, which I've already gone on about, like, during my playthrough streams, and kind of explain it in brief. But to explain it briefly here, for people who don't know, Prismatic, you get to mix and match light and dark subclass abilities, and it's super cool and very freeing, and makes me feel like there are no limits to what I can do. It's cool. Also gave a new elemental super for Warlock Solar, Hunter Arc, and Titan Void, which they're all pretty cool supers. They also, for the ritual activities, so for Crucible, Vanguard, and Gambit, they got rid of bounties and introduced the Pathfinder system. And this system that they introduced is kind of divisive as well, though this depends on where you're looking at it. If you're looking at the Pathfinder for the Pale Heart destination, everyone likes that, because you're just doing things in that area alone. You're not doing things like, oh, you have to do different modes and hop between modes and stuff in order to be able to get things done on the Pathfinder, you could just do things in the location and have it done. However, Ritual Pathfinder is something that people kind of on because, and I was talking about this in your stream last Thursday, Dragon, with Raven, about like the D2 stuff, but the Pathfinder came up. Like Ritual Pathfinder feels very restrictive, and in that like you have to like link nodes from left to right in order to get like the end reward, but you need to be able to do it in sequence. And for like the actual activities Pathfinder, in order to do some of them, you have to just force yourself to go into other activities that you may not want to play, which is kind of sucky. So I'm hoping that they improve it in the future. And that's basically me rant over all the stuff. That took a long time. Also, code is compiled now. So for people who did not see like what I changed before, I have basically removed all shading and stuff from the scene because in terms of PS1 games in the era, they didn't have actual like real-time realistic lighting. They had it like sort of baked in. So I'm trying to do that for like eventually like object textures and character models and stuff. But also, if you look at me moving towards and from the character, well, this isn't the player character, this is the AI, but they use the same model as the player, you can see the vertex wobbling. You can see the vertexes wobble just like a PS1 game. And I can adjust how this like works so that it wobbles either a little less or way more. Though I tried applying it also to some of the objects, to some of the environment in the scene at the moment. Though it does have a little bit of a texture, or a little graphical quirk. And I'm just waiting for the play mode to actually begin to show it off. Right. If I got, like, an actual sort of PS... Like, I still need to finish my little rat model. But, if I move towards here, or move the camera in a certain way... It was happening earlier. It was doing it earlier, but there was, like, a little graphical quirk where that wall just kept flickering in and out of existence for some reason. I don't know if it's like I go at a certain angle or I do a certain thing, but it does happen sometimes. But yeah, to be fair, it's 5 minutes until 1. I may as well end stream here because there's not too much more I'll be able to get done within 5 minutes in terms of coding, and I did quite a lot in terms of the architectural stuff for the the model view controller architecture and like how things link together, and that was quite a bit. So, with that, I am going to end things right there. So, to everyone who showed up, and it was quite a few people today, thank you ever so much for being here. And to everyone who watched things back on the VOD, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate you all being here a lot. In terms of next stream will be on Wednesday. I'm not too sure what I'll be doing yet, because I had a clear idea for today. But, I will think of something before then, I am sure. And then on Friday, we get back to the Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix Level 1 playthrough. But in terms of Wednesday, not sure what we do yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there. But thank you ever so much. I really appreciate you all being here. And as always, I will see you all again in the very next stream. Bye-bye!